It's our first NBC weekend review for this Monday, October 1st. Lenny Vangilder, Jude Young, Ken Trahan on the very short-term disabled list. He will be back with us later on this week. The Saints are 0-4 on October 1st. All of a year ago, they lost only 3 games. Already in the first 4 weeks of the 2012 season, they have lost more. Clearly, Jude, the Saints' best effort of 2012, but it was not good enough to beat a very good Green Bay Packers team. It was obviously better than that 1-2 record indicated.
Well, I think records aside, it was about the best performance you could expect from the Saints, considering the matchups and the personnel on both sides. They had their opportunities to win late, and basically, you can blame the offense and the special teams late in the game. Mistakes, the drop pass by Darren Sproles on that final drive. If you get a first down there, maybe you have an easier field goal. Maybe you run the clock down. Maybe you score a touchdown. Again, that's part of it. The penalty, obviously, the hold on David Thomas, another issue there. You can point out mistakes. These are the type of mistakes in close games that losing teams make. And unfortunately, right now, that's exactly what the Saints are at 0-4. A 1-point loss and a lot of ifs.
A lot of ifs at this point. And, the Chargers coming to town this week. One, of course, thing that's going to be talked about a lot over these next 6 days, Drew Brees tying Johnny Unitas's seemingly untouchable record for many years there, a 52-year-old record, 47 consecutive games with a touchdown pass. The NFL schedule makers and NBC set this up perfectly. We knew it in April. Saints, Chargers, Brees against his former team, prime time with a chance to break the record. You know, the folks at NBC, they were already doing it Sunday night, trying to sell this matchup because you've got an 0-4 Saints team sitting there in prime time, but it will be a huge story if and when Brees can break the record Sunday night.
No question about that, and you know that this game's still expected to be highly competitive, even though the Chargers are 3-1 and the Saints are 0-4. First time in over 2 decades that an 0-4 team is favored over a winning team in this situation. The Saints about a field goal favorite, so that's telling you Vegas thinks it's going to be a close game, and we know the matchup of these two high-powered offenses, the storyline, as you mentioned, with Phillip Rivers and Drew Brees. I think it's going to be an interesting ball game, and you're right. The record does help sell this story, and we know that storylines are important for these primetime games. Let's hope the Saints fans in the Dome coming up on Sunday night are as fired up about it as the casual fan around the country is expected to be.
Chargers coming off a win over Kansas City on Sunday, and as you mentioned, Jude, they'll come in at 3-1. Well, speaking of the Rivers family, of course, Phillip Rivers' younger brother is the backup quarterback at LSU. The Tigers dropped another spot in the AP, or rather the AP poll to number 4. They remain number 3 in the coaches poll. After a game against Towson, I think a lot of people just expected LSU would just post whatever score they wanted to. But the fact of the matter is that Towson team might have been better than North Texas and Idaho, 2 of the teams that they have played already in non-conference this year. And the circumstances, a sandwich game in between 2 SEC road games. Tiger Stadium was barely half full with the rainy conditions. It was a setup for a trap. LSU escaped the trap, though.
That's true, but you do have to point out that despite all the reasons why LSU was expected to not be focused in this game, after their struggles, particularly on offense at Auburn, trying to be crisp, trying to gain momentum heading into this big game coming up this weekend that we'll talk about in a moment in the Swamp, you were hoping to see more consistency from the offense. You still saw the mistakes, the turnovers, now a fumbling issue that hadn't been there before. So it seems like LSU's offense has regressed since the big win over a now ranked Washington team. So fans aren't exactly given reason to be confident that LSU can live up to those lofty preseason expectations. You mentioned they fall to 4th in the AP poll, and they deserve to fall in the poll because other teams up there that are undefeated right now have met greater challenges and seem to be improving week to week, while LSU, you have real question marks, and even now on defense, because Towson did come to play and the defense did give up considerable drives, a couple of them in that game, to a team that you wouldn't expect the kind of talent LSU has on that side of the ball to struggle against it all.
Sticking with college football, Tulane, tough day at the Dome on Saturday against UL Monroe. The fact of the matter is, though, outside of Tulane, the rest of this state in college football is pretty good. Obviously, we've talked about LSU, but Monroe, Louisiana Tech, Louisiana Lafayette, who is going to be Tulane's opponent this coming Saturday, are all pretty good football teams. And Monroe put on a clinic on Saturday to the tune of 63-10.
And the point you mentioned there that's important is the 63 part for ULM and what's going on with the Louisiana teams offensively. While LSU is struggling on offense, and we know what Tulane's dealing with, these other three teams, ULM, La Tech, and Louisiana Lafayette, they are high-powered football teams. And in the modern era of college football, where we're seeing more and more basketball scores, if you can score points, you're going to be able to win a lot of games because defenses are certainly at a disadvantage. You credit the coaching staffs at all three of those schools. They have teams that are able to compete against most of the teams on their schedule at a high level. And for the challenge this weekend for Tulane is simply to try to get some level of improvement each week. It's a scary prospect right now that Curtis Johnson's first season could end at 0-12. I don't think Tulane's going to be favored in any more games down the stretch. The one question for ULL, though, Blaine Goche, their quarterback, injured, could miss a month or more, so they'll be going with a backup quarterback, and as we know, that's something Tulane is far too familiar with at this point in the season, having played three quarterbacks already.
Well, the irony there is the backup quarterback is Terrence Broadway, right, and Tulane faced this identical situation 2 years ago when it went to Houston. Case Keenum got hurt the week before, and the backup at the time was Terrence Broadway. He since transferred from Houston to Lafayette, so Tulane will likely face him as a starter for the second time in a different uniform, 2 years apart. You mentioned basketball scores. Funny you bring that up. There was a game Friday night at Pan American Stadium, Newman and Carver, and you mentioned on the air, Newman made their free throws down the stretch, 72-68, Newman over Carver in one of the most remarkable high school football games we've seen in this area in a long, long time.
You don't see too many high school football games that don't go to overtime, or many overtimes go 3.5 hours, but that's what happened at Lupin Field. Jay Tyler, son of former LSU star Herb Tyler, player of the week last week. He was probably the player of the week this week, but we at Sports NOLA couldn't give it to him because you want to spread the wealth, so to speak. He has been phenomenal, just a sophomore, and if you watch Prep Recruiting Insider on WHNO on Wednesday nights, you can see how many players from Carver that we highlight on that show. An Alabama commitment on that club, an Ole Miss commitment, and several more that big-time colleges are going after, and all of them play on the offensive side of the ball, which explains that final score. And again, hey, free throws are important, Lenny.
They are. They are. By the way, Carver at home Saturday night against John Curtis. That may be an interesting test for JT's club. We had a chance to do that game over the weekend on Channel 20. Curtis, a big winner over Riverside Academy. So about the only thing we haven't mentioned here, Hornets. It's basketball season. We're talking about basketball scores. Hornets Media Day going on today. Camp opens. Preseason starts this Sunday in Mexico City against the Orlando Magic, and the hoop season is upon us.
That's true, and mixed emotions for now new Hornets owner Tom Benson going into his first full season. There may be some benefit from the struggles of the Saints that will draw more attention to this new era for his new basketball team, the Hornets. Obviously the excitement with Anthony Davis coming in along with Austin Rivers, optimism of a team now on the rise. So New Orleans fans have something to divert their attention, and now the Saints organization that's now basically the big happy family with the Hornets will certainly be marketing this team and letting fans know, hey, the black and gold are struggling, but the guys in teal, they might be worth watching early and often this season.
Maybe, and Mickey Loomis still has 4 more games of a suspension. He gets to spend a little time learning about what's going on out at Hornets camp. Jude, thanks for sitting in on our first NBC weekend review. Encourage you to go visit one of the many First NBC branches throughout Southeast Louisiana. For Jude Young, I'm Lenny Vangilder for SportsNOLA.com. We will see you later this week.